All right, here we go. Today's Monday, November 13th, and Moody's downgrades the U.S. credit rating. Look at this. Only 3 months after Fitch already downgraded the U.S. So, how will this affect stocks? And how does this affect our positions? So, welcome on this beautiful Monday morning to Coffee with Markus and Mark. And in this show, we are going to talk to you about what's happening in the markets and how we are trading it. And if this is your first time here, I'm Markus Heitkoetter. This super smart guy over there is my head coach, Markus, and we're real traders who trade live accounts. So therefore, we got a lot of trading experience, and we're showing you how we trade these crazy markets. So trust me, we know our stuff, and we're not afraid to tell you like it is. So if you're here looking for some honest insights into the fascinating world of trading, you are in the right place. And Mark, I don't even know, where do we start? Let's actually start with last week, and then we go over to the news that happened over the weekend. So, last week, interesting week.
It was, Marcus. We know that it was all about the Fed and what the Fed was going to do, or the decision they were going to make, the wording they were going to use. And
Dude, you're
Adrift,
behind. Sorry.
I am.
The
What
Fed
the
meeting was
heck?
already
I
2 weeks
looked at a
ago.
chart and I was like, wait a minute. I, hey, guess what? It's Monday, Marcus. I had a
It's
wonderful
Monday.
weekend. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, but I am a week behind and I don't know how that note popped up because that made no sense.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take it from here and I'll catch up, Marcus.
Yeah, no, basically, so what happened last week is that we had a super quiet week until Thursday. And we talked about it. If you switch over to a 5-minute chart of the S&P 500 for the last week, we saw that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they were pretty uneventful. So this is where, right? So on Thursday, so this was Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So not a whole lot going on. And then on Thursday, Powell was speaking at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and he said a few things and said, well, I don't think that we are done yet. And Marcus said, oh, markets, not Marcus. Market said, oh, dear Lord. But then on Friday, a massive rally out of the blue. I mean, the S&P up 1.5%, the NASDAQ up 2% on Friday just because it was Friday, and this is where it was surprising. And indices finished up the week again positive. This was the second week in the row that indices finished up positively.
Yeah, Marcus, you did a much better job than I did on that one. So back to back winning weeks. I would like to say that I'd love to say that I'm not in charge of my notes, but I absolutely am, and I don't know what happened there. Anyway, so yes, Marcus, a strong finish to what would be a quiet week. The Fed meeting was 2 weeks ago, but then the comments from Powell, and we were wondering if it was going to even matter. I mean, what's Powell going to say a week after a big one? But hey, nonetheless, the markets were able to finish higher for the second week in a row. And
Yeah.
then some potentially negative news came our way.
Yeah, because I mean, looking at the week ahead here, there's not too much going on just yet on a Monday. So everybody is waiting on the CPI data, the consumer price index being released tomorrow, and the PPI, the producer price index, being released on Wednesday. These are two important inflation reports here, and everybody wants to know what's happening. It is expected, as you can see, that everything here stays the same in terms of the core CPI, which excludes the volatile food and energy. And since energy prices has come down, the CPI overall is expected to come down and come in at 3.3%. That could move the markets tomorrow. And since there was nothing going on today, the news over the weekend, Moody's cuts the US outlook to negative. So what's happening here?
You know, Marcus, it seems like this is, a little bit of catch up. Fitch lowered the U.S. long-term foreign currency default rating to A++ from AAA earlier, and they did state they reaffirmed the USA rating at AAA. That's Moody's, but saying that they lowered its rating outlook because of debt essentially, and then what's going on with the government.
Yeah, and I mean, I must say, this was probably one of the most confusing headlines ever because, I mean, the overall, I'm just having it here from CNBC, but overall, the headlines this morning was Moody's downgrades the US. And this were, okay, huge difference. So Fitch downgraded the US credit rating from
Yeah,
AAA to AAA plus or AA plus.
that's
Moody's kept it the same. They just lowered its ratings outlook. So it's just all about the wording. And this is where you see this morning markets were thoroughly confused by it. Okay, wait a minute. So did Moody's downgrade the US or did they not do it? Because they affirmed that they keep the US, the credit ratings here, at a AAA, while Fitch 3 months ago has lowered it by one notch from AAA to AA plus. As you can see, super confusing, isn't it?
it is, and technically that AAA rating is what matters, and so I think it was just a little bit of a statement before what's going to happen here because the government is funded through November 17th. So now Washington needs to put together another bill and agree on that. And it was a little confusing to some.
Yeah, and this is what we see in the markets this morning. I mean, the way how the markets reacted to this here was at first like, oh dear Lord, this is bad news. And at first, markets opened lower, moved lower, as we see here in the 5 minute chart of the S&P 500, but now clawing their way back. And honestly, I do not know if this is really attributed to the news or if there's some profit taking after this monster rally on Friday. Again, 1.5% in the S&P 500, more than 2% in the Nasdaq. Maybe it was just some profit taking. Maybe it was this confusing statement. Anyhow, right now, the indices are still negative for the day, but definitely pulling up from the worst levels that we have seen earlier here this morning.
Yeah, Dow's almost positive. The S&P down just 0.2%, and the Nasdaq down 0.25%, which isn't much at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about this week and what to expect this week. We also do have on the earnings calendar, we have a few retailers reporting. It's a big week for retailers. So we have Home Depot on Tuesday, then we have Target on Wednesday, we have Thursday, we have Walmart. So it is a week for retailers. And I mean, that's kind of important because everybody wants to hear what do retailers think going into the holiday season. Are consumers still spending, or is the economy slowing down as the Fed is hoping it would? Or do they say, oh no, consumers are still spending like crazy?
It is a busy week for retail because you have these retailers reporting, but then on Wednesday you also have retail sales data coming out. And I think another thing that investors want to know is, one thing that is going to be on the table anyway is whether or not there was a major impact with student loan repayments going back into effect because they were on pause with COVID and the pandemic there. And so investors are wondering just how that, discretionary spending, that extra money that you had available is not, how that affects retailers when it's not being spent.
Yeah. So again, this will be interesting to see. And yeah, waiting for this. And this where today, again, after this confusing news, it seems that the markets want to drift higher, at least trying to fill the gap and go towards Friday's closing price. And I believe that they will get there. Overall, if you look at the markets on a daily chart, I mean, we just do have this important level right at 4,400 where we have some resistance. And we'll see if we can break through this today or if we need some impulses from the CPI data tomorrow morning being released before we can break through this level.
We shall see.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about our existing positions and what is happening here. And the first one coming up here is CSIQ. And CSIQ is reporting earnings tomorrow. Right now, up ahead of earnings while the markets are still down. CSIQ is up 0.85%. So what do we expect from earnings tomorrow?
CSIQ, it's going to be interesting because if we look at past earnings, CSIQ tends to do better. They tend to beat on earnings, be up with an earnings reaction, and then also on the seventh day, be higher as well. So overall, CSIQ over the last 12 quarters has had a pretty nice track record. Now,
Yeah,
recently,
go ahead.
go ahead. I
No,
was going to say recently we've kind of had this snowball of concern in the solar sector 2 quarters ago. And then this, earnings season for some of the other companies that have already reported. So it will be interesting to see if those worries are already priced into CSIQ at this point.
yeah. So, I mean, SEDG has issued a warning before they reported earnings, and CSIQ has not done it this time. So, this is where we'll see. Usually, out of the last 12 quarters, 9 times after 7 days, CSIQ was up on average, as we can see, 10%. So, that would be nice. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens tomorrow.
I almost, my prediction is that it's going to be not a lot of movement either way. The reason why is I think a lot of the concern is already priced into the market. However, I thought that this earnings season it would be a little bit of a pause, and that was not the case recently with some of the other companies. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. So we shall see, and this is where we will keep you posted tomorrow. Now, IWM, super, super, super interesting. So IWM, I sold the 169 put expiring last Friday, and IWM closed at 169.11. However, I did get assigned. Mark, how can this be? If I sold the 169.11 put and it closed at 169.11, how can I get assigned? What the heck?
So this doesn't happen too often, Marcus, and maybe this is the first out of 20 assignments or first out of 30 assignments where this has happened. So it's infrequent. However, technically speaking, those options, markets might close at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, but then you have 90 minutes after the close to notify your broker if you want to exercise those options or not. That might vary from broker to broker, but technically speaking, after that 90-minute mark, it's done if your broker hasn't been notified. And in
Right.
this case, there was a little bit of an after hours move.
So interestingly enough, so I sold the put. So whoever bought bought the put elected that he wants to sell me those shares. And again, I'm absolutely fine with it. We talked about it on Friday. I want to get assigned, and so I am assigned here this morning. Right now, IWM is trading higher, trading towards session highs, and that's where I'm looking to sell calls against my existing positions. And I'm looking at the calculator, and it actually, let me just zoom in a bit and scroll here. It does look pretty good because right now, if I would sell calls against my existing position, I could get $1.52, $1.53 for it. Now, this
Nice.
means $1,800 or 65% annualized. Like I told you this morning when we were with our masterminds, I think today the pressure will be to the upside. So I have an order in to sell it at $2. And I'll double check here as soon as we're wrapping it up. Maybe I'll be happy with $1.50, $1.60 because 65%, I can't complain. I'll take that premium. So this is exactly what the wheel is all about, right, Mark? I mean, we're selling puts, we're getting assigned, and after getting assigned, we are selling calls. There we go.
That's what it's all about. That's some nice premium there, Marcus. Good for you for holding out.
Yeah. So we'll see. Okay, moving on here. NEE. NEE moving a little bit lower right now. Off session lows, still down 1.38%. So we looked at a trend line here. So we have this here. It seems that the trend line is broken, but we got to wait where we close because most traders look at the closing price here. I'm a bit surprised that NEE is moving lower here this morning, but I think it's the overall weakness in the markets that we have seen here.
Yeah, and we know that sometimes those trend lines we could, it's not going to be perfect, just like support's not going to be perfect, but I thought NEE was going to hold up a little bit better today.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll definitely keep you posted tomorrow. PNC, on the other hand, PNC now also down. It was up a little bit earlier, so now down. And we know that we're still trying to identify the range here, or PNC is trying to find the range, whether it wants to stay here between 117 and I want to say 129, or if it wants to fall back down towards 109. And based on this, if we break above here, we're selling calls. If it breaks below there, then we're interested in flying a rescue mission. Right now, just in nowhere land, nothing to do for us right here, correct?
Hanging in there and trading right at its 50-day moving average.
Yeah. UPS, our little buddy. I mean, UPS had a really bad day on Friday. I don't even know why. I mean, it was kind of out of the blue. Oh, it was the dividend day. Let's talk about ex-dividend here.
Yeah, so on Friday, UPS went ex-dividend, which means at the open, shareholders who own UPS are entitled to a dividend. The dividend payment in this case is $1.62, and it is payable on Thursday, November 30th. So at the end of the month, we will receive that $1.62 a share. Nice little dividend payment, and that really was attributed to most of the drop on Friday. It was $1.84 that UPS was down.
Yeah. So today, down with the overall market, 0.5%. That's what we see in the overall market. The S&P right now down 0.2%. The Nasdaq down 0.25%. So that's what's going on there. Now, XOM, just wanted to bring it up in case you missed it on Friday, because on Friday, you decided to close the put that you sold at the 102 level.
I did, because it looked like it was going to expire worthless and I could close it for a couple of pennies. And what I was looking to do at the time was to close it and potentially sell puts on IWM.
And that's also what we were looking at this morning, because on Friday you didn't get filled. So you were hoping this morning to get another fill on IWM.
Yes. So the 165 puts were still available, and that was a range that I liked a little bit better. 162, 165. Those were available, and I put in an order for 75 cents, but I was not filled.
What was the high of the day?
That's what I was just checking. And 74 cents.
74 cents. Okay.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have been happy with 74 cents? It had to be 75?
You know, I would have been happy with 74, Marcus. But I'm also okay keeping a position open. So I kind of said,
Okay.
True. DFAT. Okay.
Don't be a dick for a tick. Or we should just say a dummy. So to keep it clean here on YouTube. So either way, dick for a tick, dummy for a tick. So anyhow, no, but I mean, so you spoil. I mean, we were making fun because we like to do this. But I mean, you followed your plan, right? You said your plan, 75 cents. It's the line in the sand, and sometimes this is how the markets are, right? In hindsight, we're all the greatest traders, but in the moment, and if we actually look at a 5-minute chart of IWM, it really looked like you were able to get it, because you were looking at it when we made the first push lower, then we pushed higher.
Marcus, you're not sharing your iPad.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There we
so
go.
We made the first push lower, then we pushed higher. We made another push lower, and this is where it was probably trading at 73, 74 cents. Yeah. And really at this point, it looked like it would move lower. And right then, it decided to just take off. For now, the day's not over. Do you still have your 75 cents order in?
I do.
All right. So if you would like to know how this ends, whether market gets filled here, and whether I'm selling my calls on IWM today or not, and what's happening tomorrow with the CPI data, then make sure that you tune in tomorrow. If you find this helpful, do us a favor, give us a like. We really appreciate your likes here because we're doing this show for you here. And if you feel that anybody can benefit from this show, feel free to share it. We really appreciate this. And then we will see you again tomorrow.
Happy trading, everybody.